Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Connections by Talent Store. Today, we have Andaleeb and Christa all the way from Toronto, Canada, and they are part of ExperiencePoint, really a digital provider that provides learning around innovation, design thinking, and I think you're going to get a lot of value from this session because they are really a supplier or a training provider that we haven't had much exposure to in this part of the world. So I'm really excited about this conversation because they were also one of our first partners on the platform, and they were definitely our first international partner on the platform. So it's great to have you guys both on the session today. I just want to hand the time over to you, Andaleeb, maybe to kick us off with some introductions, and then we can take it from there.
Yeah, thanks, Arun. Thanks for having us. And you're right. We've been, I think, talking about this for a year now, and I've been so excited to see the trajectory and how much things have come along. And so, hi, everyone. My name's Andaleeb. I'm a senior account executive here at ExperiencePoint, and it's been 3 years that I've been with the organization, but I've been in the L&D space for almost 15 years now. Yeah. And I manage our relationships with key accounts in a myriad of different industries, and just helping them navigate the learning and development challenges that they're faced on a day-to-day basis. Christa, over to you.
Thanks, Andaleeb. I've been hearing in the background all of these conversations for the past year, and so it's great to have the opportunity to be able to be involved personally. My name is Christa, VP of Sales at ExperiencePoint. Been here for about 9 years, and been helping organizations around the world to build new skills, and super excited to speak a little bit more about what we do and learn a little bit more about how we can collaborate with Talent Store.
Sure. Thanks, guys. So I think really the first place I wanted to start was, how did you guys get started with ExperiencePoint? Right? What was your origin story? If you can just share a little bit on that, and then we can take it from there.
Yeah, I can kick that off with what was our origin story. So it started with our two co-founders who were in business school. And as many of us have been there, we're learning business case study after case study. And that's not really engaging nor exciting to be able to do. And so James and Greg, being the computer geeks that they were, turned it into a video game, essentially, a computer game. And so they built business case studies into computer simulations. And then what that did is transform the way that they were learning. So learning by doing, real application, and real world business cases. And that was the beginning, and many stories after that.
Cool. I mean, I guess a lot of us kind of evolved from that similar story, right? I think even from my perspective in eValcs, we also started off looking at how game-based learning could help organizations, and then we kind of digitize them over time, right? So it kind of started with that case study, physical format, then kind of evolved. So from your perspective, Christa, like in terms of the value proposition, or Andaleeb, I mean, what's the value proposition that ExperiencePoint, what does it bring to the market, right? Especially, maybe we can start off in your side of the world, in North America. And maybe I can then speak a little bit about how I see your value proposition in this part of the world, in the East. How does that work for you guys in terms of your value proposition?
Arun, that's a great question, and I was going to flip it right back to get your perspective on the value proposition you see. But if you think about our value proposition, you can think of it as a three-pronged strategy, and it really starts with building essential power skills, or what was traditionally known as soft skills. And our focus is really to make sure that by training teams to solve problems and also manage change in a human-centered way, what you're essentially giving them are power skills to achieve business outcomes. And these outcomes are what you'll see in a lot of your traditional CEO conversations or annual reports, like leading digital transformation, greater customer centricity, building a culture of innovation. But to do that, we strive for exceptional training, and it's really non-traditional training. So engaging in facilitated learning by doing simulations that involve rigorous practice and application, because you don't want this just to be at a theoretical level, right? Or you want them to be able to walk away saying, I know exactly how to apply it, and I've applied it during the workshop. And so what that does is the teams develop that proficiency in a common language when they walk out of the engagement. And all of that needs to be supplanted by an opportunity for it to be easy to deploy. And what that means is we have these turnkey tech-driven experiences that allow for a train the trainer option, so that when the clients are interested in having internal facilitators delivering these experiences, they're set up for success and the lift is really minimal. And so that's how we've tried to differentiate ourselves, because you know this, there are exceptional players in the market. And so finding ways to differentiate ourselves and find a niche was always really, really important. But from your perspective, Arun, what intrigued you about ExperiencePoint, and what value proposition do you see us bringing that's a bit different?
Yeah. No, I think the first contact point that we had with ExperiencePoint was really around the idea of innovation and design thinking. I think that was the initial start, right? And I think in this part of the world, those two topics, innovation, design thinking, sprint methodology, I mean, those are becoming a lot more prevalent because companies are realizing very quickly that they need to adapt, right, and move fast, especially during COVID and after COVID, right? So that kind of started the initial search, right? But over time, then I realized you guys also do a lot of simulations, and we are in the business of simulations in this part of the world, right? But our focus has predominantly been in power skills, right? Like, how do we teach leadership through games? How do we teach business acumen skills through games, right? And so then we realized, oh, okay, there is this provider all the way on the other side of the world that has the same philosophy as us in terms of how they teach, but in a different skill set, right? So that's why we kind of connected, right, early last year actually. But I think really the value proposition is, I hear a lot from participants in this part of the world that workshops can be very mundane, quite boring. It's a format that has been overused in this region a lot, right? And people are kind of looking for alternative. HR leaders, L&D leaders are looking for alternatives, right? And so much of their budgets are driven by what participants say, how they rate the sessions. So a lot of it has to do with how do we keep learning as impactful, engaging as possible, right? And I think that's where simulations really help, right? But I would still say that in this part of the world, it's a pretty new concept, right? Majority of companies don't use simulations in their learning curriculums, right? I would say only maybe 10 to 15% of them use it on a regular basis. Yeah. So really, that's my perspective coming from this part of the world.
Thanks, Arun. I think what I've seen a lot of learning executives actually struggle with is this a game for gaming's sake? Will they actually learn from this, or is this just a bit of a gimmick? And
exactly,
showing the value, showing the business impact, applying it to their reality is where we're able to bridge that gap that they feel exists. But it's always a challenge, and it really depends on their openness and their exposure to the value that simulations and experiential learning can actually bring. Christa, what have you seen?
Yeah. Another kind of flip side of the value of a tech-based engagement or training workshop is the fact that you can scale fast and consistently. And so if I had a leader up in the room, in front of the room, and training, depending on who was teaching that training, it might be different every time. They're learning different stories. They might be learning different language. But with a tech-based simulation, within a company that you can get that same language. They have a shared experience that everyone can reflect upon, which means you can scale very fast. And I think that's also really important considering the amount of rapid change that's happening in the world today, and being able to build those new skills, consistency across leadership, but not only staying with leadership, but all of the levels within an organization.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was also one of our biggest motivators when we started creating digital sims, right, was that you can get scalability, right? And I think the old format, which was very board game based, this was before my time, but it was not scalable. There was a certain ceiling to what you could achieve with it, right? And every run was slightly different. So we wanted that consistency, we wanted that scalability, and that's why we started venturing into digital simulations, right? Another question, I mean, I know that one of the biggest selling points of some of your products, especially the ones around design thinking, is your partnership with IDEO, right? Which is a world-renowned design thinking consulting firm. How did that come about, and how has that really helped you kind of expand your reach? I'm pretty sure the partnership and that brand has kind of also helped you guys, right, achieve some of your goals. But can you walk me through how that came about and what's the impact it's had?
Yeah, absolutely. Our collaboration and partnership with IDEO has been fantastic over the years. And so, Arun, as you mentioned, it's a world-renowned design and consultancy firm, really well known for bringing design thinking into the mainstream. So democratizing essentially the methodology and the tools that go along with it. And so, how the partnership came about was IDEO works on big lighthouse or beacon projects within organizations. And they consistently get asked, well, teach me what you do. I want to do how you problem solve, how you come up with these great ideas. And ExperiencePoint, with the focus on scaling new behaviors and capabilities, had the opportunity to build a suite of innovation products that were based upon the design thinking methodology and taught those new skills behaviors. And so we worked in collaboration with a couple of their clients, or more than a couple, a handful of clients, where they were working on a big beacon project. And we came in to be able to provide the training programs to be able to support the behaviors to help that project and the new ways of thinking within the culture to be able to be sustained. And so it's been a fabulous partnership in that aspect, to be able to bring the tools of design or the skills that are human-centered to organizations around the world that needs to not only focus on their external users, but also thinking internally. How can we support the culture internally to be able to achieve those business cultures?
Yeah. I mean, I can't completely. I have the book from IDEO. I mean, the founders of IDEO. So I kind of know a lot of what they've done over the years. I mean, it's a fantastic collaboration. And so when I saw that as well, I thought, wow. I mean, sometimes you see these kind of partnership brands, and you might not be sure if it's real. But I think when I spoke to Andaleeb the first time, I kind of realized that, oh yeah, this is actually a partnership with IDEO, this world-renowned firm. So I feel like, not only do your products have fantastic value, but they also have kind of the pedigree, if I can call it such, that comes with it, right? So I think that could be a fabulous value proposition to companies in Malaysia and in the region, because we just don't have that kind of exposure, right? To some of these brands, right, that exist only in the West. So that's why one of the big reasons I wanted to reach out and see, what could we really be doing in this space with your products, right? Now, I mean, moving on, I think we kind of touched on it a little bit, but I wanted to get your perspective coming from in North America. Where do you see the L&D space really evolving to in the next few years, right? Sometimes I have this idea that Asia might be trailing maybe 1 or 2 years behind the West. Things might change, but I just wanted to get your perspective of where you see it heading, and then I'll give you my perspective as well.
Yeah, would love to hear your perspective. So a couple of things that we've noticed, and I think you're right in the fact that there's a regionality difference in what organizations are looking for. So maybe I'll speak a little bit around what we're seeing from North America first, and then I'll share a little bit around the Malaysia, Asia market, and then would love to hear your perspective as well.
Sure.
And so we are seeing organizations maybe asking less around, teach me a methodology. So teach me a process around being able to do this, because you talked about it a little bit earlier, budget constraints, time, the amount of rapid change that's happening. And then Andaleeb, you touched on this as well, like power skills are what is important right now. And so what we're finding is that more and more organizations are asking for specific behaviors. So think about customer centricity, think about problem solving or collaboration, or think about like new hires that are coming into the market. They've been exposed to a whole different world of way of working in hybrid or maybe virtual only. And so what does it mean to go into the office and collaborate and work differently, maybe even make a presentation and so forth? So many organizations are asking for specific behaviors and skills that live within a methodology, and they want to be able to focus on that. And so one of the quotes that we regularly use in our conversations or even our sales proposal is by Buckminster Fuller. And I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit here, but if you want to teach people a new way of thinking, don't bother just teaching them. You got to give them a tool. And the tool itself will lead to new ways of thinking. And so that's one of the trends that we're seeing right now, a little bit more focus on specific tools to be able to help the leaders with just-in-time training. It's another phrase we like to use, just-in-time training versus just-in-case training, something that they might need in the future. So just-in-time that they can apply immediately. And then, so that's what we're seeing from the maybe the North American market, a little bit more of a trend that they're working towards. And then globally, we still are seeing that ask for teach me the methodology, because there's still, as you shared, there's a couple of years maybe behind, in that they still want that democratization of new ways of working. Teach me the entire methodology, and let's focus on the specific tools throughout that are really going to make a difference for us. Would love to hear your perspective.
I mean, I think, okay, I think from the behavioral standpoint, it's slightly similar. I would say that a majority of companies in Malaysia, they tend to kind of follow your traditional L&D strategy flow, where you have your key objectives that the organization has to achieve, and then you kind of funnel it down to the training needs analysis, and then eventually you get to certain core competencies that the organization needs to have. And I would say that's how a majority of L&D or HR leaders still identify what training scopes are required for a given year, right? So it's still very much based on that hierarchy of L&D strategy. How do you craft a L&D strategy, right? I think the just-in-time training is something that hasn't really caught on here. I've heard this term before, but I haven't heard it being used a lot when I speak to clients, right? It's traditionally coming from the perspective of, here's a gap that we have, and with this gap, we can't achieve a certain organizational milestone, right? And therefore, I think we need to work on this so that we are able to get our people to the right level so that they can achieve that goal, right? So it's still very objective-based, gaps-based, and then finally, what's the competency that can help plug this gap, right? So that's where I see it coming from, right? But it varies. It varies from the level of organization. So if you're more established, if you're a multinational, or if you're a large Malaysian organization or a large Asian organization, you might be a little bit more forward-thinking. But we also have quite a big small, medium enterprise kind of category of customers, which are very transactional. So they just attack learning and development from a standpoint of, my sales team needs to be able to learn how to close better. Therefore, I need to have a sales closing program to help them sort that out, right? So it's very skill, very gap based, and that's also a very big segment of the market here in the region.
Arun, I wonder if just-in-time training needs have come up more and more with the disruptions that have come up in the past couple of years, right? You think about COVID, and all of a sudden people need to know how to collaborate virtually and how to deal with a hybrid workload. Or you think about artificial intelligence and ChatGPT, how like it becomes a business priority without it being on an annual report from the year before. And with that, I feel like just-in-time training becomes more and more prevalent and needed, as opposed to what was originally thought of as, a training objective.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, to a certain extent, yes, the pandemic has changed a lot of mindsets, right? So I think HR folks, L&D folks are a lot more flexible. They know that the times have evolved, so they have to kind of pick up pace as well. But I think it's still very driven by a company-wide kind of umbrella, and then everything kind of trickles down, right? And so if that priority of the year is not around innovation, for example, and the objective of the year is to, I don't know, be a lot stronger in terms of communication, for example, then L&D leaders still tend to prioritize, okay, we need to figure out things to help our people communicate better, do X and Y better, right? So I think it's evolving, but it hasn't caught up to that point, right? Where we think of learning as just in time. It's still very organizational centric, and it kind of trickles down. Yeah. So great. I mean, the next question I really had was, we've been talking about ton of stuff for ages, at least Andaleeb and I have been, but I really wanted to get your perspective, right? Like, it's a new platform. We're kind of expanding our reach in the region. What really made you kind of think about the opportunities that existed with the platform in terms of expanding your own business reach, right? How did you see that connection? And do you think that what do you hope to achieve with the platform, if you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to take a crack, and then Christa, build, please. Arun, when we had the conversation last year, I think I came back, and that might have been one of the most excited conversations I had with Christa and the leadership team, because it was really interesting to hear about what a marketplace could be like for learning and development providers and buyers, because I hadn't seen anything like that out there. And it's from our perspective, we're an organization in Canada. So for an organization in Malaysia or Singapore or Vietnam or India to know about us, unless they find out about us through IDEO, or they somehow come across us through a Google ad that we've put out there, or they've heard about us through word of mouth. A lot of our business comes through referrals or facilitators who've left organizations and gone to other organizations. That's difficult, right? So to be able to essentially establish ourselves in a marketplace, gain visibility in a market where it's traditionally tough because we don't have boots on the ground, that becomes challenging. And so hearing this, the way we've traditionally done it, Arun, is we partner with organizations in different parts of the world. And so, for example, with Lead Aeronomics, we have a fantastic partnership in Malaysia. But this is also a great opportunity to showcase us in a market that doesn't traditionally know us very well. And I love the idea of the reviews. I love the idea of almost having a B2C approach to this, even though it's a B2B relationship, where you can find out how others have felt, what the experiences were. So not just on our websites, but neutral feedback, which can sometimes feel a bit more legitimate. I know when I, for example, go on Expedia and try and book a hotel, I try and not look at the hotel's reviews, their own reviews, but what they've said on TripAdvisor, for example. And that's the real value I see, the social proof, because for us, being able to prove that social proof or show that social proof is huge. That's really what helps us win a lot of business and engagements with clients. Christa, any builds?
Yeah. Sometimes we've said that we're one of the best kept secrets, and we don't want to be a best kept secret. The platform allows us to be able to expand, but beyond that, beyond just being able to expand, we take our partnerships incredibly. They're very important to us, and we don't just work with partners around the world or platforms randomly. It's really important for us that there's a very similar way of going to market, the way that we interact, and just the excitement that Andaleeb had in coming off of that first call. We know it was a right partnership to begin right from that first call.
Yeah, I mean, I think having partners like yourself definitely adds more value to the platform, right? Because that was essentially the goal of the platform. How do we expand the scope, right? So that one day a Malaysian customer can find solutions all over the world, right? Within a few seconds, they can find everything under one platform. And likewise, a customer in India or in Indonesia. And because we are such a diverse region with so many languages, so many different kind of cultures, we need really that unifying network for us to be able to access the larger pool of what is out there in this space. In North America, and I kind of always use this example, in North America, if you run an airline like Southwest, you just need to dominate one market, and pretty much you can be one of the biggest airliners in the world, right? But in this part of the world, the strength is in the different countries, the different interactions, the markets. And that's why I felt that finding a platform that could connect that would be of tremendous value, right, to the HR space, HR community in this part of the world, and ultimately the employees, right? Because the employees are the ones that go through your programs and learn. And so that kind of gave us the belief that maybe such a solution work, and we are starting to see some of the kind of the fruits of the labor, I guess, as we are starting to bring in demand and the supply is constantly kind of building up on the platform. I really want to end it with just the kind of last question, and really, I mean, I wanted to get your perspective on where you see ExperiencePoint in this part of the world, right? Well, what's your kind of your ambition and what you would love to achieve in this part of the world? I mean, I'd just like to hear how you feel like some of the work that you've done on that side of the world can really translate well here, and hopefully we can be part of that journey for you as well as Talent Store, right? So maybe you guys can just share a couple of last words and then we can kind of wrap it up.
Go ahead, Andaleeb. Oh, true polite Canadians. So what we would love to bring to the world is our passion is about building those new power skills in leaders so that they are sustained, and why that's our passion is when people can problem solve better, they can collaborate better, they can manage change better. There are a lot of benefits, even internally to employees. And some of the greatest joy that we get out of working with organizations is the happiness and the reward, whether that is intrinsic reward or extrinsic, in that promotions are happening because they're working better. And to be able to bring those new behaviors and those rewards and benefits when people are human-centered and they're dealing with change, problem solving better, that is what we strive to do, be able to do globally, internationally, beyond just North America. Andaleeb, what would you share?
Yeah, +1, Christa. I think going back to the best kept secret in Canada, it was one of those things where it was just, when I first joined, I really was trying to figure out, why don't more people know about ExperiencePoint and how do we get the word out? Because I love feeling authentic about what we present and what we can deliver and what we promise, and how our facilitators can do it and how we can enable our clients to do it. So then it's just about, how do we get this out there? How do we help organizations really achieve their goals using our approach in true partnership style? And so that's where I'm genuinely excited, because while we definitely work with multinational companies around the world, we have great relationships with academic institutions, exec ed around the world, there's still so much more we can do, and so much more awareness building that we can really do. And that's where this kind of partnership really brings that to life. And we're really excited about what we can do together, Arun.
Sure. I mean, I completely kind of echo your sentiments. I think that what really appeals to me in terms of your products, it's that it's human-centered, right? And I think that's something that we don't emphasize enough, especially in a lot of other kind of training options that are available. And I feel like it's such a timely topic to be talking about innovation looking at how we create more human-centric products and solutions to the market. And I'm really excited as well, right? I think that, you guys being the first international partner on the platform has a lot of significance for us here in Talent Store. But I'm also really excited because I can kind of feel your passion on through this platform. But I'm really excited about what we can do together in this region, and I definitely think that customers will see that value as well, right? So I think we're going to call it a wrap for today's session. I want to thank you guys so much for spending the time, and I hope together with Talent Store, both of us grow in tandem in this part of the world, and your products reach Malaysian or ASEAN customers, and hopefully everyone knows the best gift secret in Canada last week. So hopefully that kind of comes true. So thank you so much, Christa. Thank you so much, Andaleeb. Appreciate your time. And I'm so glad to have you guys as partners on Talent Store. Thank you very much. And for the audience, next week we're going to be running another podcast with another provider on the platform. So do stay tuned. Every week we kind of release one episode, and hopefully you get value from this. It's going to be released on our YouTube, our LinkedIn platforms, so you can catch us there. But if you're interested in knowing more about ExperiencePoint, do reach out to us on Talent Store, and we can definitely connect you guys, right? So thank you so much for your time, and looking forward to next week's episode. See you guys.
Thanks for having us, Arun.
Thank you.
Thanks.